And I just remember feeling so lonely, like I've lost my friend.
You're doing great, Andrea. Just keep staying with it.
The one and only Richard Schwartz. He is an absolute legend in the wellness, healing, and therapeutic community.
To try and prove family therapy worked, and it didn't work.
You're saying it didn't work.
The more you stay connected to those parts, it's better than Botox.
Better than Botox. Oh, that hits. My first baby is my business. This was survival to me. Have eating disorders become even worse?
If everybody knew to do this, it would make a huge difference in the world.
That was an unexpected but amazing answer. You are in for such a treat today. Hello and welcome back to Getting Open with me, Andrea Miller. Okay, this is by far the most emotional and intense show I've recorded. And I urge you to stay till the end because honestly, what I experienced in this episode is transformative to me. I know that it'll change me for the rest of my life for the better, and it will do the same for you if you are open to it. I have spoken to the godfather of IFS, none other than Dr. Richard Schwartz, and I'll introduce him fully in just a moment. But if you're familiar with internal family systems, IFS, you know there is magic ahead of you. And if you're not familiar with it, there's magic ahead of you. And so much more. If you are a parent, this show is for you. We talk about building a better, more open relationship with your children using these principles. If you are somebody that contends or are close to somebody that contends with any array of eating disorders, which are very prevalent and becoming more prevalent, this show is for you. Or screen addictions, or really almost any kind of addiction. If you are trying to look your best, this practice is better than Botox. I am not even kidding. It is real. It is so powerful and so effective. And I am radiating ear to ear as I do this intro. This particular episode is a game changer. So with that, let's get into it. I am delighted to introduce the one and only Richard Schwartz. Richard began his career as a systemic family therapist and academic. Grounded in systems thinking, Dr. Schwartz developed internal family systems in response to clients' description of various parts within themselves. Guys, if you haven't heard of internal family systems, IFS, you are in for such a treat today. We're going to go deep. He focused on the relationships among these parts and noticed that there were systemic patterns to the way they were organized across clients. He also found that when the client's parts felt safe and were allowed to relax, the clients would experience spontaneously the qualities of confidence, openness, and compassion that Dr. Schwartz came to call the self. We're coming back to that. He found that when in the state of self, clients would know how to heal their parts. A featured speaker for national professional organizations, Dr. Schwartz has published many books and over 50 articles about IFS. And honestly, guys, he is an absolute legend among many of the foremost thought leaders in the wellness, healing, and therapeutic community. So should I call you Dick? Dick or what do you prefer, Dick or Richard?
Dick, yeah, call me Dick.
Dick, okay. All right, well, welcome to Getting Open, Dick. I am so excited and grateful to talk to you.
I'm very happy to be with you, and thanks for those kind words. And gets all my manager parts to relax.
Oh, thank goodness. Well, I would love just to start with the basics on what IFS is to ground everybody, so then we can go deep.
Well, originally IFS, it still is a form of psychotherapy, but it's also becoming increasingly a kind of life practice and spiritual practice for a lot of people. So it's a lot of things. And I've been at this think this is the 42nd year. I'm quite old now. So it's been quite a journey to try and bring it.
Yeah, if you can just kind of map out what the parts are and how that connects to self, that would be great. And then I got a lot of questions for you.
Yeah. So going back in history, as you said, I have a PhD in family therapy, and I didn't know from parts. I thought, I was sort of interested in psychoanalysis and with the way they saw the inner world. But long story short, I wound up doing an outcome study to try and prove family therapy worked, and it didn't work with a class of bulimic kids. And
it didn't? You're saying it didn't work. Family therapy didn't work.
Didn't do the job. Yeah, we could.
No, that honestly, that hits close to home. Especially, I've got a close family member with an eating disorder. So that I'm like, oh my God, you're putting me back to like my 12-year-old self. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, that's what we found, because my hero in the field, Salvador Minuchin, had claimed to have great luck with anorexia. And so I was going to do the same with bulimia, and it just didn't pan out. I could reorganize the families just right, and these kids would keep binging and purging. And when I asked why they didn't realize they'd been cured, they started talking this language of parts. And they would say something like, something bad happens in my life, it triggers this critic who attacks me, and then that goes right to the heart of a part of me that feels worthless and empty and alone. And that part is so dreadful that the binge has to come in to get me away from it and get me, turn me into an unfeeling eating machine. And that works for a while, but then when the binge is over, the critic attacks me again. And so that, again, triggers that worthless part, that empty part. So the binge has to come back, and they'd be caught in that vicious cycle for days sometimes. And so I thought, this is interesting. It sounds similar to what I'd been studying in families, these repetitive sequences of patterns with family interaction. Maybe there's a way I can intervene in this inner system, similar to the way I do in external families. And again, long story short, it took a while to realize that these parts aren't what they seem. So the critic isn't just an internalized negative parental voice or something, and the binge isn't an out-of-control impulse. And I made the mistake of assuming that's what they were in the beginning, and my kids were getting worse because I was getting them to fight with the critic or try to control the binge. But there was a point where I came to realize that these parts are stuck in these roles. That's not who they are. They don't even like doing it to the clients. And that if you approach them with some curiosity, you'll learn how they got into these roles. You'll also learn that they think you're still very young, and they need to protect you in the way they did when they started, and that they hate the roles they're in. They would love to transform. And so then I set about trying to figure out how can we get that to happen. and it took a while, but in the process of doing that, once I got hip to the fact that they deserved to be listened to rather than fought with or ignored, then I tried to get clients to do that. And so maybe, Andrea, I'm having you talk to your critic, and I'm trying to get you to listen to it rather than argue with it. And suddenly you hate the critic. And it reminded me of family sessions where I'm trying to have two family members talk to each other reasonably, and suddenly a third one jumps in and sides with one against the other, and it all goes south. And I thought, maybe that's what's happening in this inner system. Maybe as I'm having my client talk to her critic, and having Andrea talk to her critic, a part that hates the critic has jumped in and is doing the talking. So I would ask you to find that part that hates the critic and ask it to just give us a little more space and give us a little more time to have this conversation with the critic. then when I would do that successfully, and many people can do that quickly, it was like a whole different person would pop out who wasn't just curious about the critic, but even had compassion for it and was calm relative to it, was confident relative to it. And in that state, the conversation would go well. And the critic would show its secret history of how it got forced into this role of being the critic when you were young, and point out the other parts that it was still trying to protect. And when my client heard all that, they shifted, and they now had compassion for it too, and saw that it was misguided, but it was really still trying to save them. And so all of that to say that now, 40 years later, thousands of people using this, we can safely say that there are no bad parts, that even parts that seem horrible and have done horrible things, when approached from this curious place, will share their secret histories of how they got forced into the roles they're in, how they're frozen in time, often in traumas, and how they accumulate what we're going to call burdens, these extreme beliefs and emotions that came into your system during the trauma or during what's called an attachment injury, an episode of bad parenting. And that those burdens, those extreme beliefs and emotions, drive the way they operate, like a virus. So that's what I learned. It took a while to get hip to all this, but yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Wow, it's so helpful to hear you explain that, and it hits me so hard from my experience growing up. And I've been using IFS myself, so I'm super grateful for the work that you've done, and honestly, the curiosity that you brought, that you were willing to be a pioneer and help so many people, is a huge credit to you. Let me ask you this: was there something in your own life? And I want to come back to the parts themselves, so don't let me forget, because that's important that all those guys get named, guys, gals. But I am deeply curious about your own life experience, your own childhood. Was there something that led you to feel these things yourself, or was it really for you as a clinician to observe these, I'm assuming mostly young women with bulimia, that led you to be this pioneer?
I think it was a combination. So I'm the oldest of 6 boys, and I was born to a father who was very prominent physician researcher, head of medicine at a big medical center here, published many articles and books, so very prominent in his field. And I was supposed to be like that.
Supposed to be.
Right. And I have 3 brothers that are. And as the first, the pressure was on me particularly. And I just didn't have I was saved from that fate by, I think, undiagnosed ADHD. And I just wasn't a good student. And that really bothered my father. And so he was hard on me. He would shame me a lot. And so the upshot of that is that I left my family with a lot of burdens, again, that word, of worthlessness. There are parts of me that carry this belief that I have no value. And with that burden of worthlessness often comes this drive to prove him wrong, to redeem myself. And so I entered this psychology field with that in mind. And first, my big hope was family therapy, because that was
Take that, Dad.
That was a radical departure from traditional psychoanalysis at the time. And there were all these great claims about how effective it was. And then that didn't pan out, like I said. But then when I had clients start talking this language, and, again, at first I was scared. I thought, because they were talking about these parts as if they had a lot of autonomy and they had relationships with each other and they had power to take over and make them do things they didn't want to do. So at first I thought, maybe these kids are sicker than I thought. Maybe they've got what used to be called multiple personality disorder, until I listened inside myself and, oh my God, I've got them too. And some of mine are as extreme as theirs around food. And so then I just got curious, and I was fortunate because I had a couple clients who were supremely articulate about the phenomena. And they could see them very clearly. They could describe how they interacted, and I was intrigued. And so, and that part of me that wanted redemption kept saying, well, maybe this is it. So that part carried me through all the slings and arrows that came my way when I presented this, because it's radically different from mainstream culture, but also mainstream psychotherapy in a lot of ways. And so there were many attacks, and this part, who was so eager, just didn't care what people thought. And so it helped me weather all that. But there was a point where it didn't make me a good leader. And because I was, I can be kind of defensive and callous. And so I got the message from students and some colleagues that I better work on that. So I wound up going.
Well, that's part of that's part of the parts, right? That defensiveness and callousness, right? There's something adaptive about that.
Yeah, it's a protector. And it was a protector that I needed with my father. It could numb me from all the stuff that was coming from him. But it kept my heart closed. So it didn't make for good leadership. So I was able to work with it and then find the parts it protected, which were stuck in these scenes of being shamed in the past, and then get them out of there and help them unload all the shame and all the kind of pain they carried from those episodes. And then this protector could relax, and I could lead much more from what I call myself, with a capital S, which is the state of that I would access when I would get these parts to open space in those clients. Because as I would do that, as I would get parts to open a lot of space, and this other person popped out who had curiosity, compassion, confidence, clarity. There's 8 C words or qualities of what I call self. And I would ask, if I was working with you, I would say, Andrea, what part of you is that? That's great. Let's keep that here. And you would say some version of, that's not a part like these others. That's myself. So I came to call that the self with a capital S. And the big deal about IFS really is that self is in everybody, can't be damaged, and has all these great C-word qualities, and knows how to heal, and is just beneath the surface of these parts, such that when they open space, it pops up. And that has held up these 40 years. And now, as you say, IFS is wildly popular. And so it's being used all over the world, and everybody's finding that self is in there.
Yeah, it's gone mainstream in the biggest way, and it feels like it's accelerating. And what I want to say from my own experience is it is so fast, right? And so many people are hesitant to do psychotherapy because they'll go, oh, I don't want to lay on the couch talking about my childhood or my parents, for 10 years. And while using IFS over time, and I want to actually ask you this question, I do want to say to everybody listening and watching, you can get literal instant relief when you identify those parts. And I'd love for you to walk us through an exercise in a few minutes, but I kind of want to do a little foundational work before we get there. But first, whatever happened, what happened with your dad? Did he ever recognize your brilliance as a pioneer? Did that ever get healed?
Yeah, actually, that's I can probably tell the story now that he's dead, but he at first he thought it was kind of bizarre that I was running into this phenomena, and then he's a good scientist, so his advice to me was, okay, stay with the data, even if it takes you way outside your paradigm or my paradigm. And so he wound up once I found direction, his critic calmed down a lot. And so he was pretty supportive. And then the story I was alluding to is he retired and got very depressed because he was so used to being a big shot all the time. And I knew he wouldn't go to see a therapist, but he asked if I could help him. And so, so I wound up doing a series of sessions with him, and he did it. He found his critic, and it was brutal because I knew that part. It was like when I was trying to work with him with it, I had parts that I had to get to step out because they were so angry at it. But I could see how it was really hard on him, as hard on him as it was on me. And then, he went for what we call an exile. And it was interesting because at the end of every session, he would say some version of, that was kind of an interesting fantasy, Dick, because he had to kind of put it down. But he'd always ask me for another one. So I did maybe 10 seconds with him.
What do they say? Like success is the best revenge? Oh my God, you have opened my heart like you can't believe in hearing that. Did you forgive him for all the shame and heartache that you experienced as a young person?
I worked at that a lot. And, some of those encounters later really helped. But there were parts that I had a lot of trouble forgiving him for a long time. And so I just kept working with them. And now I really feel blessed in some ways because IFS wouldn't exist if he hadn't been so hard on me. So, and, I feel like he's around helping still. So, yeah, I mean, in the later part of his life, we became very close. And he, like many people do, he really softened a lot as he got older and much more consistent. He was always very loving when it was his self around, but you always knew that critic was nearby if I made a false move. And then the last, I'd say, quarter of his life, I didn't have to worry about that. So,
oh my gosh, what a gift that you gave him.
I feel good about it. Yeah, I went into it with a lot of trepidation, but I feel like I did help her.
Yeah, that whole business of having a critical dad. I'm close to my dad, but he is one tough customer. And I'm going to visit them this weekend. And I'm like, can I secretly practice IFS on him? I'm like, all right, let me figure out if I can like summon out these parts. Let me ask you this. Do you have kids?
I have 3 daughters, and 6 grandkids. Okay.
So what has your relationship been like with your daughters as a dad who has been the pioneer in this work and given your relationship with your own dad?
Yeah, well, I think the kids suffered from my obsession with this, and they would talk about IFS as being the 4th sibling, and in some ways the preferred sibling. And when I would approach them back when they were young, they would say, "Get out of here with that part shit, Daddy. I don't want anything to do with that." And then as they became adults, and the part of me that I was talking about earlier that drove me and really calmed down a lot, and I could be much more self-led with them, and really actively tried to repair and reach out, do more. Then they started to let me do that, and I feel like we have a really good relationship now. And one of my oldest daughter is now an IFS therapist, and
that is really cool.
And my other kids occasionally ask me to help them with something and do a session. So all that seems to be much better.
Oh, good job, Papa.
Yeah, I feel proud of that. I have to ask them occasionally, is there other stuff in there that are we really okay? Because I really want to heal it all if I can.
Oh my God. I want you as my dad. That is amazing. Honestly, just a shout out to all the parents. If we just did that, and I'm a parent of two amazing boys, they're 12 and 15, and I appreciate the reminder as a parent myself to just be accountable and ask that humbling question, what else can I do? And it's different, obviously, when they're grown-ups like your kids are, but I feel like it's for a teen and a tween to just keep it real and be accountable. And I got to tell you, Dick, what hit me hard as a person that grew up with a lot of alcoholism, deadly eating disorders, just a lot of dysfunction, I relate so deeply to that idea that you had a fourth child. My first baby is my business. And I sacrificed, I didn't do a maternity leave with either kid. I didn't take a honeymoon. I can't tell you how much of my life I missed trying to prove myself. And it's an addiction. It's a coping mechanism. It's like, to me, it was survival. I didn't realize until I was much older that this was survival to me. And I'm again grateful for your work and some of the other somatic work that I've done and so forth. But I think that's what is hard to understand is how people like us, and I think there are a lot of people like us, how that drive to succeed and prove ourselves it's an existential drive to survive, I think.
Totally was for me. Yeah. I wasn't ever really suicidal, but if I didn't prove my value ultimately, that would have, been terrible. So
yeah, I feel that
it felt existential to those exiled parts of me. And speaking of exiles, so just to lay out the map a little more clearly.
The parts. We want to hear all the parts. Get them all. Let them show up, and none of them. There are no bad parts, people. I'm just going to say it again. There are no bad parts. That's the good news, right? They all have something to teach us, and I love that. And it's non-pathologizing. That's a big word for me. But yeah, lay them out, whip them out for us now.
Yeah, and like you're saying, I'm going to describe the common roles they're forced into, but it isn't their essence. So my position is that they're all valuable. We're born with them. It's great to have them because they all have gifts and talents and resources to help us in our lives. But they're forced out of those naturally valuable states into roles that can be damaging and sometimes dangerous by trauma and attachment injuries. And so as I was hearing about all these parts from my clients, as a systems thinker, a family therapist, I was trying to create a map that would help me understand this territory. And so I was looking for distinctions among them. And the big distinction that leaped out immediately was between parts that before they got hurt, you would call these precious inner children who give you all kinds of liveliness and creativity and playfulness and so on. But they're also the most sensitive parts of us. So they get hurt the most by whatever happens to us. And so they're the ones who wind up carrying the burden of worthlessness or the burden of terror or the burden of emotional pain from our traumas. And they, like I said earlier, they get frozen in time. They're stuck back during the trauma, such that when you ask them how old they think you are, you usually get a single digit. They still think you're in that kind of dangerous environment. And so once they get burdened like that, they make it hard for us to function. So we naturally try to lock them away inside in inner basements or abysses. And we try to live our lives without any of that. And our culture tells us to just move on from the memories and emotions of the trauma, not realizing that in doing that, we're locking away our most precious qualities just because they got hurt. So these we call exiled parts. And when you have a lot of exiles, you feel more delicate, the world seems more dangerous. So other parts are forced out of their naturally valuable states to become protectors. And some of them protect by managing your life so that nothing like that ever happens again. So they maybe try to make you look perfect so that you don't get rejected, or make you achieve, like mine. So you get accolades to counter the worthlessness, or they try to keep everybody a little bit of an arm's distance from you so that they don't hurt you again, or they take care of everybody around you and don't let you take care of yourself. So there's a lot of common manager roles. They keep you in your head. They don't like feelings. And despite their best efforts of those quote unquote defenses, the world has a way of triggering your exiles. So there's this, when that happens, there's this big surge of raw flames of emotion come out of your gut and threaten to overwhelm you and pull you back into those terrible seeds and make you face what happened. And
it's so unconscious. I mean, as somebody who, I'm going to admit it. I'm in my 50s and I still get triggered sometimes by that exiled part. Oh, don't tell anybody, but keeping it real here on Getting Open. And I just want to add just a little more color. So common exiles are the rejected child, the shamed one. And tell me if I'm getting something wrong here. The abandoned or unloved one, the part that holds deep grief or fear, that part that feels not good enough, the part that feels like they have to prove themselves. And then all those adaptive behaviors, the overcompensating, overachievement, all those things those reactive parts of us that are unconsciously held, they're the ones that are getting triggered by these different versions of the exile. Did I get that right?
Yeah, so those would be the managers that are trying to counter the exiles or trying to contain them. Now, it doesn't always work, and an exile gets triggered, and like I said, it's like these raw flames of emotion are going to overwhelm you. And so there's another set of parts who are on standby and immediately go into action to get you higher than those flames of emotion, or douse them with some substance, or distract you until they burn themselves out. So we call these firefighters. They're fighting the flames of raw emotion coming from the exiles. And they're, in contrast to the managers who are trying to control everything and often try to please everybody, these firefighters are impulsive, reactive. They don't care about the collateral damage to your body, to your relationships. They just think they've got to get you away from those feelings or you're going to die. A lot of times they believe that. So they can be destructive or seem destructive, even though they're trying to save you. So that's the map. Two kinds of protectors, managers and firefighters. Both have the same goal of containing these exiles, but opposite strategies. One is control, preempt. The other is react, out of control. And so they're fighting with each other all the time. A lot of the critical stuff is the managers trying to shame you out of doing the firefighter stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had talked about just the inner critic, the perfectionist, the controller, the planner, the hyperachiever, the caretaker. Oh my God, this is a big one for me. The analyzer, the intellectualizer, and then the avoidant or numbing manager, right? So just to put those specific kind of personality traits out there for everybody listening and watching, they go, oh my God, yes, that's me. That's just a part of you people. It's a good part. Don't reject it. And then with the firefighters, adding to what you were saying, these people that can be hyper reactive, and by these people, pointing to myself a little bit here again, keeping it real. The binge eater, the drinker, the addict, the drug user, the rageaholic, the dissociator, the self-harmer, the compulsive shopper or scroller, social media people, screen addiction is real, checking out, the seductive part, the sex addict, probably the porn addict, right? Those parts of, well, that's not going to be us, me, but, speaking more broadly, the people that just find these ways to, like you say, kind of overcome, and because the feeling of shame and rejection, abandonment, all those things that the exile feels is so freaking painful that it makes sense that either that the protector, the manager, or the firefighter's like, yo, we can't be in this exile mode much longer. Let's get in and solve the problem.
Yeah.
And it seems like, oh, go ahead. Yes, please explain.
Most of us have a kind of hierarchy of firefighter activities. So if the first one doesn't work, you go to the next one. If that doesn't work, you go to the next one. At the top of that hierarchy for most all of us is suicide. If the fire gets hot enough, there's this exit strategy that's actually very comforting to your system to know that that's possible. And so when you approach some of the lower level ones and say, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't make them drunk all the time? They'll say he would die. And they mean it, because suicide is the next one on the hierarchy. So they're literally saving your life by keeping you drunk. So firefighters are heroes. That seems crazy in our culture. And it's so hard. It's so hard to convey this because everybody's grown up vilifying them. But once you ask that question of what are they afraid would happen if they didn't do this, they're always protecting something. And then we try to convince them that there's another way to do it. So, like, if you had a suicidal part, I would probably want to talk to it directly. And I would say, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't kill Andrea? And it would say, she would feel this pain. I've had it. I can't stand how much pain she feels all the time. And I would say, well, if we could get her out of her pain in a different way, would you have to kill her? No, but I don't think you can do that. Would you give me a chance to prove that I can? Because if you give me a chance, I guarantee we can. So it's sort of like that with each of these levels of firefighter.
Oh my God. Dick, what do you think about taking me through an exercise so that people can see how it works? I'm probably going to cry my eyes out. I'm grabbing my my tissues. I will try to keep myself together. This hits home.
I appreciate your willingness to do it, because people don't really get it until they either watch it or they experience it themselves. So I'm really appreciative that you're willing.
Yeah, well, I've been, in fact, I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Frank Anderson, somebody that you're close to, who he's actually walked me through IFS a couple of times. And Frank, I love you. It is so powerful. And so, yes, I'm willing to put myself out there and be really emotional, because I do want people to know how powerful it can be in an instant. And then we're going to come back to not just trying to take the helicopter to healing, but really going in. But let's start with the exercise.
Sounds good. So, Andrea, is there a part you'd like to start with?
Oh my God. All right, I put myself out there. I guess it's too late to turn back, right? I guess that abandoned part of me that just keeps needing my attention.
Okay. And as you contemplate going to it, is there fear that comes up in addition to doing it in public? But are there fears of getting close to it?
Yeah.
So let's start there with the parts that are afraid to let us do this, if that's okay. Because I typically don't go to those places without permission from the protectors. So what's the big fear that comes up as you contemplate this?
That she will feel like this forever.
Yeah. So from this part's point of view, what's the point? Because it's not going to do any good, and she'll be disappointed. You'll be disappointed, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I just have to say, the firefighter that comes out with such extreme reactions, I'm an engineer. I've got an MBA. I've done all this intellectual work, and it feels so hard and honestly embarrassing to, and it's not that I'm showcasing this to everybody, but I know it. And the people that I'm really close to, they see that part of me, and that is so hard. That firefighting reactive part of me is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So the part that's talking now is afraid of both, probably. Both that there's nothing you can do for this little one, and it's afraid it's going to trigger more of the firefighter. Is that right?
Yeah. It's like I don't want to be stuck with either of these. And I appreciate, it's like I've tried to befriend them, and I have made progress. But this feeling of, oh my God, are they going to be battling inside of me the rest of my life? Yeah.
So what I can say is I'm really good at this. And we can go to that young one and get it out of there and heal it if we get permission. And so it's not that it's not going to do any good. It'll actually help that little one feel much, much better. And then the firefighter won't have to go off because that little one will be will be happy. So what does this protector say to that? Is it willing to give us...
oh my God, hallelujah. It's painful to be the firefighter, the reactive one. It really is.
Yeah. No, neither the manager or the firefighter I'm talking to want to do their jobs. They just don't have alternatives. So we're going to show them there's an alternative. So now as you contemplate going to that little one, how does it feel?
Oh, such a relief. I mean, to know that it's like, oh, okay, this, like you said, you're really good at this. So, and I appreciate the comic relief over here. Otherwise I'd be crying my eyes out even more. But it does, there's almost like an instant relief of, okay, this totally unexpected, and what a gift to be speaking with you right now.
It's great. Yeah. So go ahead and focus on that one and find it in your body, around your body.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of where it is?
Yeah, it's almost like between my, like mostly in my chest, but as you said that, I started to feel even down more into my stomach.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So focus on those places and tell me how you feel toward this very vulnerable little one as you sense it there. How do you feel toward it?
Oh my gosh. Well, so combination of sad and tender.
Good. So let her know that you have a lot of compassion for her and tenderness, that you care about her, and just see how she reacts to that.
It feels like such a relief. I mean, I'm mindful. Mindful is maybe not the right word. I feel just how she's been literally exiled. Just like, hey, you got to be quiet. Like, yeah, you're dangerous.
Yeah. So maybe you could apologize to her for doing that to her, or letting these other parts do that to her.
Mm-hmm.
And tell her we're not going to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And see how she reacts.
Oh, so appreciative, and just like, okay, I get it. Not mad. It took you a long enough time to get here, but okay.
Well, that's very generous of her. So, do you see her in there, or you just sense her?
No, I see her.
And how close would you say you are to her in terms of feet away in there?
Oh, maybe a foot or two away, maybe 2-3 feet away.
And she can sense your caring right now. She can sense that you want to help her. She seems to trust that. Okay, good. All right. So, Andrea, if you're up for it, then go ahead and ask her what she wants you to get about how bad things were back there. whatever she wants you to know about what happened and how bad it was. And don't think. Just wait and see what comes. And just stay with it. You're doing great. Just keep encouraging her and let you feel it and sense it and see everything. Because we really want her to feel witnessed finally. Yeah, just stay with it.
There's such a profound sense of loneliness.
Yeah. Let her know you get that.
She was just so little, and to be by herself, that
Right.
hurts.
Yeah. So it hurts. Did she also feel rejected, or she just was lonely?
Yeah. No, she just felt just abandoned, maybe not rejected, but forgotten,
Forgotten.
and invisible. Yeah. I mean, just like, okay, I'm going to have to figure this out on my own.
Yeah. She really felt like she was on her own without any help.
Yeah. And had to carry a lot. Kind of had to do it all quietly, just like, all right, I guess I'm going to do all this on my own. Mm-hmm. And I have to, excuse me, but shut the fuck up.
I hope. Yep.
And that's hard.
Tell her you're getting this. Tell how hard it was.
Getting it.
Yeah. Does she agree? Does she feel like you're finally getting this?
Yes.
Okay.
I was such a sassy little girl. It's like, hello. It's like such a funny, weird feeling to be back, 40 something years ago like this.
Yeah, just stay with her though. And ask her if that's everything or if there's more she needs you to feel and see and sense.
Honestly, what I'm feeling is, yeah, but it's okay right now. We're good.
Even there's more, but it's enough for now?
Yeah. It's like that, like we're 85, 90%. And that is such a relief.
Okay, but see if that's coming from a manager that doesn't want to go the next 10%. Just see if there's some fear about doing the rest. Because if they let us do the whole thing, we can totally unburden her.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear.
What's the fear this time? What are they afraid would happen if you witnessed everything that happened to her?
When I was little, I would find my mom passed out drunk. Then I'd be home alone. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time alone when I was little. My parents would be out, or home and like completely unavailable. And that's scary.
Yeah. So tell these parts that are so scared to see that if they let you see it, we're going to get her out of there. But usually these parts need to be fully witnessed first. So tell them we're shortly going to get her out of that scary place. But they need to let you finish the witnessing and see if they're willing now.
Yeah.
All right. Then go back to her and tell her you're ready to know the rest. How scary it was to find the mother passed out. Everything else that she needs you to get about what happened.
Well, my sister also got really, really ill. And she's older than me. And I just remember
being so confused about what was wrong. And we were always so close, and we still are. She went through so much heartache and so much grief. And I just remember being little, and it's like we used to eat cereal together in the 70s, like sugar cereal, Trix and Fruity Pebbles. And she quit eating those things. And I just remember feeling so lonely, like I lost my friend who used to eat cereal with me.
So she kind of shut down.
Yeah. I mean, she had to protect herself and
Right.
survive.
That's right.
But it just made me feel that much more alone.
Yeah. And it was a huge loss. Yeah. So then it was just you with these parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let her know you get that.
Okay.
And see if that is the extra 10, 15%, or if there's still more.
I'm going to run out of Kleenexes.
You're doing great, Andrea. Just keep staying with it. This is our time. Finally, you're going to get it all.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Don't think. Just ask her. We want to hear it from her.
Okay. You're right. Yeah.
She said yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. All right, so now I want you to go into that time period and be there with her in the way she needed somebody. And just tell me when you're there with her.
Yeah, I'm there with her.
And how are you being with her?
Tender and present, and just really trying to be quiet and see her so she can, I feel like there was a little wild streak in me, a little sassy streak that I had to tamp down. And, it's just to see her and feel that joyfulness. And it's like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, and so she is kind of sassy and playful with you now?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, she's not bouncing off the walls. It's like this, just like, oh God, it's such an overused phrase, but like authentic presence, like just relaxed, like just little me.
She'd be herself, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And ask her if there's anything she needs you to do with her or for her back there before we take her out to a good place. Like, does she need you to do anything with these parents or with the sister?
She just wants to be seen and felt.
All right. So does she want you to tell them that? What does she want you to do for her back
No,
there?
I think it's just see me now. Just see me now. Get me.
She wants
feel
you
me.
to see her. She
Mm-hmm.
wants
Yeah.
you to see her?
Mm-hmm.
And are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. What's that like for her to be seen finally?
Oh, such a relief.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not in a
So she
hurry.
doesn't- Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Good. Yeah, just see if there's anything else she wants done back there before we leave.
No, just to be there and calm together quietly, not, really beautifully, like just being there together quietly.
Well, see if she would like to leave with you and go be together in a better place.
Yes. Heck yeah. Get my sandals on.
Good. So she's ready to go. You're going to go. So see if she'd like to come and to your house or to you there and where you are, it's like an office, or would you like to
this
go
is
to a
my
fantasy place?
Yeah.
What?
No, home. I mean, the studio that I'm in right now is in my house. So yeah, I live in Colorado.
So she wants to come to your house there? So tell me when she's there.
Yeah.
How does she like
She's here.
it?
She loves it. This feels so good.
So tell her she never has to go back there. And you're going to be taking care of her this way. See how she reacts to that.
It's a relief and such a joy. I mean, it's home.
Right. And now see if, given that she never has to go back, if she's ready to unload the feelings and beliefs she got back there.
Oh, yes.
Where does she carry all that? In her body or on her body?
Yeah, in her chest, in her arms.
What would she like to give it all up to? Light, water, fire, wind, earth, anything else?
I think to the air, to the sky.
Make sure it comes from her, because you said, I think. Just ask her.
Oh. Yeah, into the air, up to the sky, light and gentle.
So go ahead and tell her, let all that go out of her body, off her body. Let it go into the air in the sky till it's all out of her. No need to carry any of this anymore.
Wow. Oh, great. I mean, the sun is shining on her face, and it's just so much lighter and freer.
Good. And tell her if she wants to now, she can invite qualities into her body she'd like to have and just see what comes into it.
I mean, the two dominant are calm and playfulness.
Great. Okay. And before we stop, let's invite in all these protective parts that were so afraid to let us do this. And just see how they're reacting to seeing her now, particularly the firefighter and that original manager.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like I felt this kind of rush of, in both instances, the manager, the critic, the people pleasing, the performing parts, and then hyperachievement, and then that hyperreactive, quick to anger. It's like it was like this like quick activation, and then it's like this like almost instant relief. It's really amazing.
It's great. Yeah, tell them to really check her out now, and how they don't have to protect her that way, because you're going to be taking care of her. And ask them each if they really trusted the state, they were freed up, what might they each like to do instead inside of you?
Oh my God. Well, combo of, first rock band. and then it's relax, and then it's, oh my gosh, put our energy into a such better use, because we have a role in her life.
How's that sound?
Oh, amen. Yes. I mean, 1,000,000 times yes.
So tell them that you'll keep reminding them, and that you really like those ideas.
I have to learn some instruments if they're going to be a rock band. No, but in all seriousness, this ability a feeling of harmony, and just, there is something productive and effective to be done, that there is a role. I mean, it's harmony first, and then it's like, and there's a role for you guys, for us guys. It's like, oh my God, it's unexpected. Really, really a relief, honestly, really a gift.
Okay, does that feel complete for now, Andrea?
Yeah. I mean, wow. Wow, that is amazing.
Well, thank you for taking this big risk in front of your audience.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the show is called Getting Open. I have to be willing to put myself out there, I think. And honestly, Dick, thank you for doing that with me. And honestly, for your pioneering work and your courage, and what you described, the extreme lengths that you went to yourself, so you could learn this and bring it to people like me, and I mean, millions of people. And it's really remarkable how powerful it is. And that, I mean, I how long did that just take us? Maybe half. I literally just lost track of time. Like half an hour?
Yes, half an hour. Yeah. You said that earlier, and it's true. Not always, sometimes the protectors won't let us go. And so we don't force anything. We just work with their fears. And sometimes it takes, quite a long time. But when they do trust you, and clearly your protectors trusted you and me, then we can do a lot in half an hour.
Yeah, that is the miracle of IFS. Let me ask a couple really practical questions for everybody listening and watching. What is your recommendation for people listening and watching who are like, oh my gosh, I want that. I want to be free. Like you just helped free Andrea and heal Andrea. What are the places that you'd recommend that people go to so that they can have this experience and they're practitioner? I'm going to let you answer the question rather than try to answer it for you. Sorry.
Yeah. So it took a while, but we just started targeting the public, bringing IFS to the public more directly. And there's somewhere on my desk, there's something called the Internal Family Systems Workbook, oddly enough, because it has a lot of meditations and exercises that are designed for the public. And in contrast, though, to what we just did, we're not advocating that people go to these very raw places by themselves, because it can be tricky and you can get into trouble. So, but there's a lot you can do by just getting to know your protectors and helping them come to trust yourself, which is the way we started. And so that's a lot of what this book is about. If people do want to do the kind of healing we just did, there's a directory of IFS therapists on our website, which is ifs-institute.com. And lots of good therapists all over the country and now all over the world. And we are now shifting more and more toward bringing it to the public. We're going to have a lot more resources soon, including we're experimenting with AI, of course, like everybody. Not to be an AI therapist and replace all the therapists, but to help people maintain, to help people do this on their own more. And so things like that. And the book that everybody loves, it seems, is called No Bad Parts. And that is written basically for the public too.
Okay. So those are amazing resources. No Bad Parts, Internal Family Systems Workbook, and ifs-institute.com. And we'll put these in the show notes. And something that I've used, to your point about to go into a really raw place by yourself is tricky and maybe even a little risky. Something that I've tried to take from IFS is when I'm feeling dysregulated or one of those parts appear or a difficult emotion appears, even simply to use the curiosity that you advocate for and say, I see you, and really try to build a relationship with that feeling rather than rejecting it. And that has been extremely powerful. Is that something that you'd recommend to people?
Yeah, and that's in the book, and that's, I was saying earlier, it's become a kind of life practice. And so when I get up in the morning, I check in with my parts, I'm kind of go over the agenda for the day, and I'm doing a lot of, I know you guys like to take over, but just trust me, I can handle it. You don't have to do that.
So what does that look like? Let me just ask you to rewind 10 seconds. So Dick wakes up and starts talking to his parts. Can you just go through that? What's that monologue in your head?
Yeah. So, I have a couple of managers that try to handle everything and overall are very helpful. Now they're much more advisors than dominators and critics, but they still sometimes get scared, and then I'll feel this pressure in my forehead, and I'll have a big agenda and stuff like that. So in the morning, I'll notice them in particular, and I'll just let me handle the day. I'd like you guys as advisors, just let me. And then they sometimes will point to some vulnerable parts, and I'll remind them that I'm not a little kid and that I'm taking care of those parts, and they don't have to. And like that. So I'm just having a little staff meeting sort of in the morning.
Oh my God, I love that.
And then as I go through the day, and, before I came onto your podcast, I had a little meeting, and I said, I don't know Andrea, and I don't know how this is going to go, but it always goes better if you let me stay. And so, and they do know that now. It's taken quite a long time for them to totally trust me, but they do. I might notice at some point, I wasn't sure exactly where to steer you, but I might feel a little. I just say, "Oh, it's okay. I got it." Then they relax. So that's what I mean by a life practice. I'm just talking to them through the day and reminding them they can trust me.
Well, the amen to that trust piece, and that has been a big part of my own healing journey. That just, and it is a practice to learn to trust, and like you say, no bad parts. So to be wonderfully curious, so that they can be seen and heard, and that trust can be developed is to me a really, really powerful way to stay relaxed, right?
Yeah, it's a great way. I've got markers for when myself is in my body and when my parts are. And so another way to do it is I'll just check before I talk to someone like you. Is my heart open? do I have a big agenda here? Am I trying to impress? Am I all that kind of stuff? I just notice the parts that ordinarily might interfere. And then as I get them to open space, my heart opens up, all the C words like calm come in, confidence is here now. So I'm much more, and there's a kind of vibrating energy that runs through my body when I'm in a lot of self. And so I start feeling the vibrating energy and everything goes well. Almost always goes well when they let me stay.
When self is self, I mean, honestly, it's just this, but what I feel from you and hear from you is just this wonderful sense of presence.
Yeah. Yeah, I can also tell by my tone of voice. So right now there's a lot of self coming through. And when we were working, doing that piece of work, I felt a lot of self. And when I can be that self-led and present, then your protectors trust. They just automatically trust. So a lot of the skill in being a good IFS therapist is doing your own work so that you can do it from this self place.
Well, I want to call out for those who are listening and not watching, you have this wonderful poster behind you that says it's never, and I can't see it entirely, so I'm going to fill in the gaps, but it's never too late to come home to yourself, which is an extraordinary reminder. And I think of like in my life where, you can just, when I'm suddenly activated, it's like, oh, I can come home to myself right now. And that is such a powerful reminder, right? When things go sideways, go south, and all of us have that, right? I mean, and that's to your point about IFS really being a lifestyle practice, and that it gets easier. I mean, I have certainly found that it gets easier as you build that muscle memory, and then use those techniques to identify who is trying to be dominant right now. And why? I mean, I just feel like that comes back to the beginning of our conversation. Why is the critic criticizing? Why is the firefighter escalating? And I feel like it helps. I mean, back to your point about the curiosity, it really helps to be really curious about ourselves. And when I think about bringing that to our relationships, in fact, we haven't talked about parts on how does that work, and what do you recommend whether as a parent, a spouse, a friend, using IFS, or should we use IFS to enhance our relationships with other people?
Yeah. Ideally, you can have a self-led relationship with a partner or with a child, in which case you're relating, even when you have conflict, you're speaking for your parts instead of having your parts take over and do the talking. And so instead of, if my wife Jean says something that bothers me, back in the day, I would say, why did you say that? Now I'll do a U-turn in my focus, and I'll notice the part that would want to say that. And I'll just say, just let me handle this too. And that's more challenging than other things. But now, most of the time, I'll say, when you said that, it triggered this part that felt hurt. And then that protector that you don't like was about to go off on you. So I was able to reassure it. It didn't have to, but I would prefer that you not say that, some version of that. And so even in the face of what usually is very triggering, if you can stay in self, it makes a big difference in all kinds of relationships. And bringing those 8 C words to your kids, rather than, we talked about burdens so far that came into you from your direct experience in your life. So that little girl got a lot of burdens back in the day from your parents. But there are also burdens that you inherit from your ancestors or from your ethnic group. And you don't want to pass those on to your kids. So So there's a whole process for finding these legacy burdens and helping unload those too. So, I was thinking, didn't you say you were about to go visit was it your father?
But both of my parents, going to see them this weekend.
Okay. So let's practice for a second. You can do the make it a live practice. So focus on that visit. Just focus on that visit. And as you imagine it, notice the parts that ordinarily would come up. And tell me who you notice.
The manager. It's like a manager with armor on.
Uh-huh. And how would the manager make you interact with him?
More protective, keeping things at arm's length. Oh my God, just doing the dishes, running to the grocery store, and part of me is like, oh no, those are the things you do as a daughter, and your parent, mom's not well and dad's her caretaker. So there's this intellectual part of me that's like, well, of course you would do those things. But then under that, it's like, yeah, but Andrea, come on, keep it real. You're still performing, right?
Yeah. So there's a protector who's defensive and armored. And then there's another part that's performing, trying to be the good daughter.
Well, and please, yeah.
To please them, right? Yeah. Anything else come as you notice what it's going to be like there?
I'm not sure where this comes from, the parts, but just that it's just heavy. It's a lot.
Yeah. 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 So there are parts that feel very burdened by it. Okay. So just stay with that image of your home or your parents' home. And we're not going to go into that yet, but just as you feel that heaviness, just see if those protectors and the one who feels so heavy about it can separate from you a little bit so you can get back in your body and self.
Yeah, it was just, as you spoke those words, Dick, it was instant. It was like, oh yeah, that's available to me right now.
That's right. And now as you feel that in your body, take another look at that scene and see how it feels now.
Oh my God, night and day. I mean, it's just to be present and joyful. Yeah, it's a totally big paradigm shift.
Okay, and then turn to the protectors and just see if they let you do that a little bit in reality when you do visit. See if they're up for that or if they're not ready yet.
Oh yeah, no, they're like, all right, we can go nap. we can go and find other things to do with our energy. Kind of be quiet. Yeah, no, it's like instant permission granted.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of what I do for myself, and what we try to teach people how to do as a life practice.
So practical. I mean, that was 2 minutes, and now I'm gonna land in Atlanta and just have a very different experience. And I know I can pull myself back into that space of, like I said, just so much more joyful. I mean, the feelings went from kind of feeling burdened and stuck in a pattern, stuck in those roles, to free and just being present and joyful.
They'll probably do things that'll trigger those protectors, and so part of the practice is when they do get triggered, just remind them. They don't have to jump in. You can handle these people.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Thank you. No, I love that. I love that so much. And I just want, again, everybody watching and listening, this is game changer, guys. It's a game changer. Just saw that, like, you can see even how I'm smiling, right? And what was it? 74 seconds, I think you just walked me through that. So it is. So IFS for the win. I want to rewind to the 8 C's since you've referenced that. I've got the whole list in front of me. In talking about the self, and when you keep saying it, they're letting me, I want to really ground everybody with the self, this beautiful self that feels safe to be in charge, unburdened. Yes, it's no bad parts, but not being hijacked by the exiles and protectors. And when we're in that space, and I can attest to it right now, guys, calm, clarity, compassion, curiosity, confidence, courage, creativity, and connectedness. I got all those right now. Can't you see? Radiating them. I'm radiating all the C's right now. But that list is, and we'll put the list in our show notes too. These are just such powerful words that to me are so reflective of the gift of being present and being unburdened by those parts that are hijacking because they feel like they need to protect us. And I feel like what you're saying is, and how I feel is, if I don't need those, if myself doesn't need to be protected by those parts, they're welcome when they feel like they need to get attention. But those 8 C's of self-energy, and you even said you feel that higher vibration of yourself. And I could feel that too, right? You helped me trust you and be as open and vulnerable as I was. And now those different attributes. And I know, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, I mean, I just think of the things that I'm doing in my life and being able to tap into those C's from myself. It's like, okay, game on. That's where the action is.
That's right. It's a different way to live if you can lead a lot of the time from self. And, I'm not pretending like I don't ever get triggered. I do occasionally, but generally I can. It just helps to know it's not a panic attack. It's just a part. It's just a part that needs attention. So it makes a big difference. We've been talking about eating and stuff, and I want to mention that there's a book called Unburdened Eating by Gene Catanzaro that's about, I think your audience would appreciate, because it's about the body stuff and eating and how to do that without all the crazy parts that are involved.
And is that, so when you say that unburdened eating, what immediately comes to mind? Oh my God, I mean, it feels like such a continuum from anorexia, bulimia, and then I think about people that I know that are men and women, extremely, the control around their food, and whether it's gluten-free or vegan, and those are good things. I'm not over here casting a shadow on those things, but it feels like it's a good thing until it becomes extreme, and then it feels like it's the control. And the controller is the manager, right? Having that, and you can seek control in any area of your life, and in a way, it reminds me of, for me as a workaholic. I wasn't going to have an eating disorder. I wasn't going to be an alcoholic. There were a lot of addictions that I could see were no bueno, but workaholism, that's a virtue. And in air quotes.
That was me too. Yeah.
Totally. Overachiever, proving myself just like you. But I think of even the virtue of eating a really clean diet that at the extreme becomes a vice, or becomes not a vice. I don't want to judge and blame it, but that also becomes, to me, a coping mechanism. Do you think that's accurate?
Protector. It becomes either a manager or a firefighter, depending on the sequence. But I think they call that orthorexia. So
Oh, I haven't heard orthorexia. Okay.
And I think, it's a lot just depends on the motive. So if you find that if you don't eat that way, you're going to get really, you're going to run into your exiles, or yes, you're afraid some other binge part's going to take over, then it's being used in a protective way. But if you're choosing to be a vegan because it's a self-led choice, not unburdened, it's an unburdened eating choice, then it's great.
So what is orthorexia? I haven't heard that term.
It's sort of like eating the correct way as a syndrome, that you become obsessed with what's going into your body, and it becomes as much of an eating disorder as anorexia or bulimia.
Is that something that has become more common?
Very much, yeah. All this emphasis on wellness and anti-aging, and people are just all hyped up about making sure. I mean, it just gives parts a new distraction, a new way to keep you away from your exile.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Like I said, anecdotally, I've observed that. I didn't know there was a name for it, and I didn't know it was more of a syndrome, but you describe it brilliantly, right? Because there is so much pressure on wellness, emphasis on wellness. And then when I think about social media and the comparison culture and how we're all looking at each other, and so how do we look? How I can see how that, because I typically think of eating disorders as impacting younger women. But I could see orthorexia being more prevalent with both men and women and older people, not just the teens and 20s somethings.
Yeah, there's a big upsurge in eating disorders in older people too now too. Yeah.
Men too, or just women, or mostly just women?
Women, yeah, mostly women.
Since we're talking about eating disorders and bulimia and anorexia in particular, there's been so much attention and vilification on Snapchat and Instagram for abetting more of that, and in certain algorithms even providing guidance. It sounds like, in your observation, have eating disorders become even worse for the kind of teen, tween, and 20-something set?
I don't know the statistics exactly, but I do know the damage that all the social media algorithms are doing in terms of making people hyper worried about their appearance and their social standing. And that's what drives eating disorders, at least in part, is that sense of, if I don't look perfect, if I'm missing out on everybody else is having a great time. And I've got to constantly focus on that. Yeah. And so it's, I spent a chunk of my career working with eating disorders, and it was hard enough back then, but people weren't up against what they are now.
Yeah. You would see your buddies in school, and then you'd go home and not see them, or you would see all these and let's face it, mainstream media has been a culprit in propagating these really, for most women, idealized, unreachable standards of beauty and body image.
Yeah,
right. So I think
that's a lot of what Jean's book is about, is what our culture has done to women's self-image that way.
Well, I feel like, as a 50-something-year-old woman, and there's some controversy around Demi Moore being the most beautiful woman in the world. I don't know if you saw that a few months ago. As a 60-year-old or 60-something woman, she is beautiful, and she's Demi Moore, and yet it's like, to look like that, it's expensive, it's risky. And I think there are a lot of men and women that just felt like, but more probably women, like, oh my gosh, can we just look 60? You know what I mean? Like versus being 60 and looking 40 or 30, in your 30s, right? So I do think that probably correlating with what you were describing a minute ago, how older women are, there's a greater propensity for eating disorders. I would contend that there is a greater propensity for women to not feel comfortable with aging. And then you look at, oh my God, Jennifer Aniston and J-Lo and Halle Berry and these gorgeous women in their 50s. And it's like, oh, in a lot of ways it's great because they're setting this new standard. And, this gets into a whole other thing. When you become an older woman, you become invisible and nobody sees you anymore. So in a way, I love it. It's like, oh, let's take our power back and let's not become invisible. And yet it's like, can we just relax already? Do we have to work that hard? So it feels like a bit of a double-edged sword.
My approach is the best way to stay young is to reconnect with your young parts, which is what you did today. So
snap, I love that.
The more you stay connected to those parts, it's better than Botox because they help you look younger.
Hang on, say that again. Can stay connected to your young parts, and it is better than Botox. Oh my God, that is totally treatable, Botox. Dick. Dick Schwartz says that's great.
Yeah, so doing your work, retrieving these exiles keeps you young, keeps you healthy. Yeah.
Well, totally, and just energetically. It feels like it becomes a virtuous cycle because you don't have that heaviness and. Literally sitting here, I'm a high energy person. I feel like I've just grown about 3 inches talking to you and just feeling so much more energized and lighter and unburdened. And that then it's like, okay, cool. Now I get to go and do enjoyable things rather than, kind of like the ugly opposite of, okay, God, I just feel depressed and burdened and mad at myself. So I'm going to sit on my ass. You know what I mean? Like it does feel like your point is a really good one. It's energizing, right? Let me ask you a couple other quick, do you have 5-10 more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Just going back to the parts, I'm deeply curious. And you talked about, these are parts that it's like they have roles to play, whether we like it or not. Right. And I'm curious if you've seen in your work if birth order impacts any of the IFS work.
Yeah, well, like I was saying about myself, I was the oldest of these 6 boys. And so I wasn't a typical oldest boy because I wasn't a parentified child. You know what that means. So
I was going to ask you about parentification. So why don't you define that and talk about parentification too, please?
Well, a lot of the older kids, especially when parents abdicate, which clearly sounds like happened to you, they get stuck being the little parent, and they carry all this. They have these massive managers that now carry all this responsibility for taking care of themselves and also for taking care of their siblings, and so that's what we call parentified child, and. A lot of times that happens to the oldest.
Well, and let me just chime in real quick, Dick, because you said they take care of themselves, they take care of their siblings. In a lot of instances, in my instance, there was also some caretaking of the parent. I remember bringing, food to my mom and, and we were always close and exactly. We're so close and she's amazing. And yet, it was like, oh my gosh, back to the people pleasing, back to I need her to be safe and okay. And then I'll be safe and okay. So I'm going to hyper clean the kitchen, take care of my little brother, just be proactive and do all these things so that things will stay in harmony. And that's my job. That was how I rolled for a long time.
Standard with parentified children. Yeah. And as I say, I wasn't a typical parentified child. I kind of I don't know, because my father was hard on me, I just kind of distanced and took care of myself that way. And birth order does have a big impact. So.
And do you feel like kids that are only children versus oldest, middle? I mean, I'm the middle child, so I've got middle child syndrome. I used to. I don't have it anymore. I've totally rid myself of that. But you know, birth order does tend to cause people to behave in different ways. So, if somebody's sitting here like, oh, I'm the middle child, or I'm the oldest, or I'm the cute, funny youngest. Are any parts?
Middle children have your syndrome, which is they often feel invisible. They feel like they're not seen at all, and that's they have this responsibility, but they don't get credit. They don't get seen for it, which sounds like was your situation.
Yeah, and that made my exile really pissed off. Very sensitive. But there is a great healing for that, as we know now. I had one other question. Oh, I know. So I've done quite a bit of somatic work in terms of controlled breathing, heart-centered meditation, and so forth. Is there, when you think about people doing IFS, and I feel like the IFS work that I've done, I feel like my nervous system is more cooperative now. I mean, is there somatic work or any complementary work that you'd urge people to do as they embrace IFS?
I wouldn't say urge. There are things that can be complementary. Various forms of meditation and, yoga. There's a lot of people do some various forms of yoga with IFS, and I've become very interested in combination of various psychedelics and IFS really facilitate the work. And so the only caveat I have about practices that quote unquote ground people or try to regulate them are that some people who have big trauma histories have parts that don't want that. They don't want you to feel good until a lot of the healing has happened. And so you'll be fighting against those parts as you try to meditate or feel grounded. That's, it's not a huge population, but I've always kind of erred on the side of let's just go to these parts and get permission and then meditate. And if you do meditate and you find that you're struggling and it's a big hassle, then just find the parts that don't want you to and work with them and get their permission. So I'm all about permission from protectors.
Well, even that, I just that I feel that in my chest, coupled with the curiosity and bringing that, honestly, when I think about bringing that kind of presence into other relationships, I'm thinking, my kids are, as I said, 12 and 15. Hello, teenage boys. That permission, so to give ourselves permission to tap into those parts. I mean, there's a part of me that feels humbled by that as a parent, right? And just to have a little more of a humble attitude toward my kids.
Yeah. I mean, again, those 8 C's help a lot. Just to be curious rather than try to teach them all the time or control them all the time. Because too many parents feel such pressure to raise their kids a certain way until they become very controlling. Or the opposite. There's a lot of parenting advice now to not really discipline kids. And there's some kind of happy medium in there where if you discipline, do it from self. Don't do it the way my father did, which was from his critical part. But don't hesitate to discipline. and to be firm with kids as well. They need that.
I mean, nailed it. When I think about where I've erred as a parent, it's when those, while they're not bad, they're no bad parts, I know that, but those parts that are activated have taken over, and being able to more easily get back into that curious, calm, okay, I'm going to get them in front of me. I'm not going to say all of them, everybody, but compassionate self, that feels like the gift that just keeps on giving. And, when I think about being able to raise people that don't have to have the burden that you and I had, and so many of us as parents have, like, that feels like the great gift. I mean, and even you were talking about, I don't think you used the word ancients, but like the generations before us, who then impacted our parents, and then our parents impacted us. This idea of we have the ability to stop, to a huge extent, stop that generational transmission of those hurt, those hurts and those things that have been passed down to us. That feels like such a great. I mean, it's worth boohooing to my millions of watchers to do that. I mean, I feel like that is the great gift of being on the planet. Is I get to heal, and the best version of me gets to be born, even though it's a little embarrassing, and I'm going to have to go back to Costco to get more Kleenexes. It is. It really does feel like that is the great gift. I mean, particularly of being a parent, that by doing that work, that you get to give that to your kids. But I mean, even for me as a spouse, as a leader, as a coworker, as a sister, even as a daughter, like, I'm going to show up this weekend with my parents, more open-hearted, more present, more calm, more curious. And that, that just, it's like, it just becomes an individual choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's a lobbying for a ninth C, which people wanted it to be choice, because self allows a lot of choice. But that's not a quality like the others. So I could go with capacity for choice. That would be a quality. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a lot to remember, but I feel like if you just have them written down and, on your phone or whatever, you can just refresh that list, and it's like, it becomes internalized. I feel like when you do work like this, and you do it and you do it and you do it, and you give yourself patience, and then you give yourself grace and curiosity when you screw it up, because you are going to screw it up. And let me, I think that's going to be my last question, and then I'll give you the final word. What are another C word, either caveats or things that you would want people to know who are motivated to try IFS themselves? You've given a few qualifiers. Hey, be careful. Don't go too deep on your own. That can be risky. What else would you want people to know or be mindful of before embarking on IFS if this is new to them?
I guess just to reiterate some of what I said, which is that working with protectors in general is pretty safe to do on your own.
Mm-hmm.
As you do that, these exile parts are likely to come up, and you don't want to throw them back. You want to let them know you see them and that you care about them, and begin a different kind of relationship with them, but don't necessarily go through all those steps that we went through to retrieve them and unburden them, because that can be kind of tricky, like you said, and depending on the level of the person's historical trauma and so on, then other kinds of scarier firefighters can get triggered and so on, like that. So and some people won't have that problem, but you just don't know in advance whether you will or not. So we've been erring on the safe side. So if that's the case, there are lots of IFS therapists listed on our website.
Well, and taking then that a little further, I've said it now a few times, you can get instant relief. You can
have some really fast, amazing progress, but not always. So in terms of managing expectations of people, and I've done a lot of work. So I see, and even to your point, like I was able to go in and you beautifully led me. What do you think people should expect? And it's a loaded answer because it's like, well, it depends on their level of trauma and their circumstances. But I mean, when you think of IFS therapists working and getting people from, say, a place of discomfort or despair, right? So, they're not in a good place, to a place where, wow, they're in a good place. How long would you say that typically takes? What should people expect?
No, it just really depends. But in general, just thinking of these things not as emotions or not as who you really are, but instead knowing who you really are is this wonderful self, and that all these others are parts, and they aren't even bad. They're parts that carry these burdens from your life and from your ancestors, and they can be transformed. Just that shift in your identity can make you a lot happier. So if nothing else, just that kind of understanding of yourself makes a big difference.
Well, I have to pick that up and really just squeeze it. The idea, and you said it before, the no bad parts, but I just feel this, where we're such a label obsessed society, right? Good, bad, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And when I think about your point, the point that you made brilliantly, but maybe I'm saying it because it resonates so deeply with me. Rather than having that judgment, it's back to the curiosity, rather than this, these are these feelings that are uncomfortable and that typically we think of as bad and we want to avoid them and we want to reject them, to really back to not judging, but instead being curious and having that habit, that habit of heart and mind to meet them as not as enemies. It feels like, ooh, that's liberating. Like if we could all just do that a little bit better, we would be less stressed and
it's
less
all parallel because because if you hate certain parts of you, then when you see those parts in other people, you're going to hate those people. But if you understand those parts of you and you have a good relationship with them, then when you see them in other people, you can stay in self relative to those people too. So everything you do in the inner world translates into the outer world.
Oh my gosh. That is it. Honestly, it's like a million times yes. Right. And, this question comes up. Do you have to love yourself first before you can love somebody else? And it's like, well, it helps. I would say, yeah, you can love other people and, have a challenging relationship with yourself. But my deep experience has been, the more I learn to love myself, and I just love how you phrase that, make peace with those parts of me that are more challenging, that they aren't as triggering when I meet them in other people.
Yeah, exactly.
That is that literal sacred opportunity, right? Okay, Dick, we have been talking for almost 2 hours. Thank you. This has been so powerful, so healing and transformative. Before we wrap up, what haven't I asked about, or what are you excited about doing, or what, how do you want to end this conversation? Or continue it. Another 2 hours. No, just kidding.
I've really enjoyed it, Andrea. And again, I applaud your courage to do such a deep piece of work. And I'm honored by that. And my guidance has been, most of my career was focused on training therapists to do this. And we still are doing that in a big way, but I'm also starting to try and bring it to larger systems and to the culture, and ideally replace the paradigm for understanding the mind and relating to the mind that exists in the culture with this, because it's just, if everybody knew to do this, instead of fight with parts, go and love them and love each other because of that, and they knew the self was in there, it would make a huge difference in the world. So as I get older and I have a certain limited amount of time left, that's my calling now, is to bring it more broadly. Yeah.
That is amazing. And how cool for you to be the pioneer in developing this, and for it to be taking root as strongly as it's taken root and now growing wings, and to have the opportunity to make it even more accessible to more people. And to be fair, I want to say, when I interviewed Frank some time ago, I think he referenced that as well. That it makes it that Dr. Frank Anderson just makes the work that you're doing that much more accessible at a time when, let's face it, there's a loneliness epidemic, there's an anxiety epidemic. It feels like there's just more prevalence of mental health issues. And I always love to wave my phone for people who are listening and not watching. These weapons of mass distraction that I think are causing us to feel, our devices are causing us to feel so much more alienated from one another, that ability to overcome that. Well, let me ask you that as one last question. And I'm not even sure exactly how to phrase it. No, given how prevalent our devices are, I mean, we all see this, and most of us are guilty, but I don't know about you. You're probably more enlightened than me, but I'm sometimes at dinner on my phone and my kids are there. I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to admit it. When you think about just what a dominant role our devices are playing in our lives, where does IFS come into that, or how, I mean, we all know better, but then we're addicted, right? And we're distracted. So what are your thoughts? What do we do?
Yeah, well, the part of you that tends to be addicted is generally a firefighter. It's really just trying to keep you distracted and keep you away from exiles. So as you heal your exiles, you don't need that as much, just like you don't need a lot of other addictions. So it'll be interesting, now that you've healed that little one, to see if you do it as much.
Oh my God, nailed it. I will be so happy. I'm like, I do not need to look at why am I looking at my phone right now? Like, I'll call myself on, then I'll just look at my phone. That's really interesting, because you're right. It totally is an addiction, and it is keeping us, let's face it, from being present. It's an escape. And so where am I most joyful? In the present. I mean, we're almost present in the joyful, and most joyful in the present. Right. And so that's actually, that was an unexpected but amazing answer. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, the danger of not being distracted by managers is that it's an opportunity for these exiles to come creeping out. And then you suddenly start to feel worthless and go over how few friends you have and whatever happens. And so then let me get my phone back out. So.
Well, and to the point, though, of healing the root cause of those exiles, it's okay. You become unburdened, right? That's the great gift. So, back to self. It's never too late to come home to yourself. Amen to that. Oh my gosh, Dick Schwartz, you are such a gift. Thank you so much for being on Getting Open, and for all you've done for me personally today. And for our audience, I really hope everybody takes genuinely to heart the gift of IFS that you've pioneered, and befriends their parts and takes more further steps, rather, to come home to themselves.
Well, I appreciate you. This is, like I was saying, all in line with my guidance, which is to help the public become more aware and start to change their relationship with all this. And I know you have a big audience, and so I'm really grateful to you.
Yeah, no, same. And it is just, to me, it's the ultimate empowerment that each of us has more power than we realize. And just by like showing up and doing the work, and something that can be done so instantaneously. I know I've said it like 10 times already, but I don't even care. Because it's a lot of times easier not to do it. And then we wonder why we feel badly. I'm saying, guys, just do it. Just do it. Don't stay stuck, right? I mean, the gift of being present and joyful. Okay, no, we're using the C words, calm and clear and compassionate and curious. That's where, it's like, it's our lives. It's your life. It's my life. Don't outsource it to your device, or, stay stuck in victimhood. I mean, this to me is, when I think about liberating yourself from victimhood, which is extremely common in our culture, this to me is that great gift. And just to really underscore the point, I promise I'll let you go. I don't want to, but I'll let you go. As we make peace with those parts inside of us, that we are able to make peace with those parts in the people closest to us. Oh, that hits. That is so good. Right? And then that comes back to us, right? Because if I'm being more patient with the people around me and being more compassionate and curious, then that becomes the virtuous cycle. And that is like game on.
Yeah. Self is contagious. So if you can be in self, it pulls the person with you, pulls for their stuff.
Yeah, no, amazing. All right, Dick, thank you. And I am just, again, beyond grateful and look forward. I got to have you back on Getting Open. How about that? We'll plan a date in 2026 and we'll continue to spread the message.
I really enjoyed it. So I'm happy to do that.
All right, you got it. All right, we'll plan it. Okay, thanks again. Bye now. Okay, that is it for Getting Open today. I hope you got as much out of this episode as I did. Oh, by the way, I got a lot out of it, considering how he took me through that insanely intense healing exercise. Oh, please, guys, don't blow this one off. Don't just say, oh, God, that was an interesting show. Take the next step. Go to the IFS site, get the book, talk to a therapist to the extent that, and even just the little, I don't want to say tiny because they punch above their weight. Those moment by moment practices, when you're starting to feel activated, checking in, I see you, right? Befriend the critic, befriend the manager, the firefighter, the exiled one. It makes such a big difference. It is. And even before today's session, it's made such a big difference in my life. And that's what I so deeply and dearly want for you and the people you love, the people you look after, the people that love you, that will benefit from you doing this incredibly powerful healing work. As always, I'd love to hear from you. So write to me at gettingopen@yourtango.com if you have feedback. Of course, I love reading your comments wherever you get this podcast, iHeart, YouTube, Spotify, you name it. And if you are not following or subscribed to the show, please do so. I am bringing you this show with my full heart along with my team, and we don't want you to miss an episode. With that, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.